Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So David Benavidez defeats Oleksandr Gvozdyk by a 12-round unanimous decision to win the WBC interim light heavyweight title. Have to be honest, I was very disappointed with this fight. I was expecting a much more entertaining fight, and I was expecting more of an effort from Oleksandr Gvozdyk. When I looked at Gvozdyk's performance in this bout, it looked like he was in sparring partner mode. Gvozdyk is a fighter who can merge from boxer to boxer puncher. He likes to throw those shoe-shine combinations, and in the middle of those combinations he'll throw a really hard shot, maybe the uppercut, maybe the straight right, overhand right. But in this fight, I barely saw Oleksandr Gvozdyk throw a punch in anger. He was shoe-shining throughout this bout, and, you know, he just allowed Benavidez to completely outwork him in many rounds. And, you know, I can maybe understand that in the first half of this fight, because Benavidez started very quickly. High output right from the outset. Benavidez was showing us some more wrinkles to his game. He was taking his head off centre line. Defensively, he was a lot more responsible in the first sort of 6-7 rounds than he usually is. Wasn't just reliant on a high guard as defense. He was jabbing off the line, moving his head well. He was putting punches in bunches. He was leading with power shots at times. You know, early on, you could maybe forgive Gvozdyk for being a little overwhelmed by the speed, by the output of Benavidez. And, you know, Gvozdyk soaked it up, but he wasn't really effective in the first 6-7 rounds. He was, like I said, he was shoe-shining. He never really tried to let go of hard punches. And yeah, Benavidez really in the first 6 or so rounds was styling on Gvozdyk. We can forgive that, okay? We can forgive it maybe. But the second half of this fight from Oleksandr Gvozdyk was unforgivable in my opinion, because Benavidez was visibly tiring as this fight drawn into the second half. The output from Benavidez in the second half, round by round, dropped dramatically. You know, still landing some good shots, still picking some good shots, but they were more single shots. There wasn't many occasions, well, there were less occasions in the second half of this fight where Benavidez would really go through the gears and put punches in bunches together. And Gvozdyk at this point in time, with Benavidez output dropping, Gvozdyk was still doing that tip-tap amateur-style boxing. He was never, he never seemed willing to let his hands go and fire real hard shots. Because Benavidez, especially in the last 4 rounds, looked very, very laboured and tired. Whereas Gvozdyk, to me, still looked pretty fresh. Despite the good start by Benavidez, despite the bodywork, for me, Gvozdyk never really looked tired. He never really looked tired. He never really looked hurt. There was a couple of occasions where he was overwhelmed and, you know, he had to take a backward step or spin out. But he was never buzzed or badly hurt to the body. And he was fresher in the second half of this fight, especially the last 4 rounds. And, you know, the last 4 rounds, Gvozdyk won some of these rounds based on the shoe-shine type of fighting. He was outworking Benavidez. He was outboxing Benavidez. But again, where was the commitment to the right hand? Where was the commitment to the uppercut? Where were the hooks? You know? It wasn't there from Gvozdyk. He seemed very happy to be there, stay in there, be relatively competitive, but never really rattle the cage, never really attempt to upset the apple cart. A really strange performance by Gvozdyk, because I felt he could have done a lot more. He could have taken a lot more risks. And for me, he turned up for a payday. He didn't turn up for a win. Did he throw this fight? I mean, he done a pretty good impression of a guy throwing a fight. I can't see how you can watch this fight and think to yourself, Gvozdyk gave it his all, because I don't think he did. And that was very disappointing, because I think the second half of this fight could have been very interesting. You know, I've never seen Benavidez that tired towards the end of a fight. Usually he finishes quite strong. It was the opposite in this fight. He started really quick, but he flagged in the last sort of 4 or 5 rounds. I felt Gvozdyk would be more dangerous early on, to be honest. I thought Gvozdyk would be the guy who would flag, who would tire out. And that to me goes to show that he never really put the effort in this fight. You know, he was super fresh in the last few rounds. Super fresh. And bear in mind as well, he was maybe the bigger guy. He was certainly as big as Benavidez, but he never really tried to impose himself. Not sure what was going through his head, to be honest with you. I didn't really catch what his corner was saying. I would have been reading the riot act in the last 4 rounds when Benavidez was noticeably tiring. But there was no impetus, there was no energy, there was no rolling the dice, there was none of it. None of it at all. So I think this win, I mean, Benavidez won the fight clearly, but my lasting impression from this fight is Gvozdyk just never came to fight, as far as I'm concerned. Very disappointing. Benavidez, like I said, he looked good in the first sort of 5-6 rounds, showing us some different aspects to his game, a better defense, I would say. But in the second half, man, he looked very cumbersome. He looked very predictable. But, you know, Gvozdyk never really tried to take advantage. So what can I say? I'm not going to break this fight down round by round, but first half of this fight was your average Benavidez performance. You know, very high output, hand speed combinations, with a couple of added defensive attributes, you know, moving the head, etc. Even at times he was going southpaw, Benavidez, early in this fight. But the second half, man, I wasn't really impressed with Benavidez. I felt Gvozdyk should have asked questions. So yeah, my overall opinion of this fight was disappointing. Disappointing. I was expecting a lot more, to be honest. But there we go, that's boxing. Where does Benavidez go from here? No idea. Is he going to fight for a light heavyweight title? Is he going to try and get a Canelo fight? We shall see. We shall see. As for Gvozdyk, retire, because obviously his heart isn't in it. Share your thoughts below. Been your guy, Del Boy. Peace.